Well, with Starfield coming out the day this video gets uploaded hopefully, I thought to celebrate the occasion with a Skyrim playthrough, and this dumb idea has been in my mind for quite a while, so today we see if it is possible to beat the game while over-encumbered. Yeah, saying that aloud already brings in feelings of dread, but we will get to it when we get to it. I do have a few rules for the run. As soon as I can start collecting items, I must become over-encumbered as fast as possible and for the entire duration of the run. While yes, I am playing on PC so I could console command my carry weight to 1, I thought to play this closer to the console releases, and it would be interesting to have to deal with a 330 limit. I will have to walk through Helgen, but as soon as I see the message, I'll have to stay above the limit. That will make the Thalmor Embassy interesting, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Also, no companions since they can run ahead and do the killing for me. With that all out of the way, let's begin this madness. Starting out the run in the character creator, I decided to play the game as a Breton. I went with the Breton for their natural resistance to magic since dragons love to yell at me, and I thought the resistance would help. Also, I wanted to use Conjuration for the playthrough since I never played with that branch of magic, so something different for this playthrough. I think the longest part of the character creation was coming up with a dumb name. While a giant lizard saves me from losing my head, I already lost my mind at this movement speed. I am running, casually strolling as fast as I can despite the yelling. We climb the tower and the first obstacle presents itself. The game expects you to do a running jump onto the building, not a casual fall. Thankfully, there are invisible terrain to save me, so the run can continue. After running around Helgen, we arrive at the choice to who to go into the keep with. I chose Roloff not because I wanted to side with the Stormcloaks, but because his door is closer. After removing my bindings, I began to loot everything that isn't nailed down, and use my Conjuration to good use by summoning Good Boy to take care of the guards. I annoy Roloff by not hurrying, and it's not until the torture chamber when it can finally become over-encumbered, starting the challenge for real. It took a really long time to get out of Helgen, but the Spark spell helped out quite nicely for the rest of Helgen. At the very least, with the amount of looting I'm doing, I'm not going to be hurting for money for the run. At the 30-minute mark, I finally escape Helgen. Mind you, it normally takes me about 10 to 15 minutes to do so. What have I done? Outside of Helgen, I make the smart move of using power attacks while moving forward. Your character lunges forward with a considerable amount of speed, which helps, but for 2 power attacks before I'm out of stamina. While going into Riverwood, I make sure to grab the Mage's Stone to increase destruction and Conjuration learning, and cleaning the local mine of its bandit problem. I take said loot and sell it to town for a nice profit. I was worried that selling all my stuff would invalidate the run, but by the time the blacksmith was out of money, I still had a lot of weight on me. Instead of going to Whiterun, I decided to hit up Bleak Falls Barrow for minimal backtracking, since I cannot fast travel while over-encumbered. More on that later. Heading into the dungeon, I realized the familiar companion was already fallen off, like the Draugr would take it out in 1 or 2 attacks, so that will be something for later to help fix. Usual dungeon exploration until I make it to the wounded frostbite spider, and I use the door key to abuse its AI, so I'm not taking that much damage. Despite name Agnir the Fleet, he was too slow for my snail butt and dies before he could even run away, letting me take the golden claw. The rest of Bleak Fall Barrow goes normally how it normally goes, thanks to my heavy armor. The Draugr boss at the end goes down pretty easily with one helpful tactic: slowly walking backwards at the sword's reach. Hey, free money is free money. Back outside, I make a pit stop at Andis' cabin and put her down for a quick nap, mostly because I wanted to use her cabin as a makeshift alchemy and enchantment table when I need a quick use, but I never ended up returning during the run. Oh well. On my way back to Riverwood, I get jumped by the second most incompetent thief in Tamriel. As soon as he demanded my goods, he just decided to not bother and instead attack something else. I quickly stole his life and clothes and returned back to town. Since I was in the area, I decided to return the golden claw for a quick buck and unloaded my Bleak Falls loot. With my business done, I slowly strut towards Whiterun. When I get to the farms, I notice companions attacking a giant. There is no way my snail ass could help out, and it was dead by the time I even got in rendering distance, and the deed was done and they were already going back to town. I followed them, and to save time slowly waddling through Whiterun, I punched a guard so I can get warped right to Dragon's Reach.
Smart map.
I immediately hand in the quest for both Balgruuf and Farengar before receiving word a dragon is outside Whiterun, and despite the hurries, I do my slow waddle as usual. When I exit Dragon's Reach, I notice Irilith taking a swim in the moat to pass time. That's just insult to injury. While meandering through Whiterun, I make a point to stop by the merchants to sell my stuff, but more importantly, I buy some vegetables. I use the cooking pot to make some vegetable soup, and while under its effects, I'm able to chain power attacks in a row, allowing me to move faster and not have to wait for my stamina bar to recharge. Saying this is a godsend is an understatement. I eventually make it to the tower and begin the first dragon fight. I took the time to buy some spells from Farengar because Frostbite will be useful because the range and speed are my 2 biggest problems, so taking one on the equation will help. Magic notwithstanding anyways. I didn't do much during the fight. The archers were able to take it out. I take the Punch Guard Uber to Dragon's Reach and wrap up my first day about 2 hours into game time. I knew at this point I was way over my head. Starting the second day, I eventually make it out of Whiterun, picking up Armin's quest on the way for some free training, and finally level up so I can have cheaper spell casting and extra magic will help out. Making it out of Whiterun, I make probably the biggest brain plays that will turn the run around and make it viable. Let alone feasible, but more on that later. I steal a horse. I take it to the local cave and take back the sword. When I exit the horse I stole managed to despawn. That sucks, but Whiterun isn't that far away. I re-steal the horse and make my way up to Dawnstar since I want some powerful resources and I'm not above using glitches. It's Skyrim, they are but features. And for those who are wondering, you cannot take the carriages to places while over-encumbered. The adventures to Dawnstar was something to say the least. Along the way I encountered Tamriel's most incompetent thief who would not even acknowledge my existence. Like I was able to push him around with little effort.
It just works.
Skyrim being Skyrim, I continued my adventure north, stopping at a farm for later. There really wasn't much going on during the travels, and it was mostly danger-free. The only enemies I was able to encounter were some frost spiders, who thankfully had stormtrooper aim. It's when I make it to Dawnstar was when chaos began to happen. For those who don't know, near one of the mines is an invisible chest where the Khajiit merchants' inventories are located and sell from, so a lot of free items. I used this for soul gems, but they were holding back the good stuff. Oh well. But after I got the items was when things began to spiral out of control. The horse decides to start walking back to Whiterun. This wouldn't be a problem, but two things. One, the horse walks faster than me, and two, I'm in the middle of town, so if I was stole, I would have a lot of angry guards after me. After I get out of the limits, I decided enough is enough, steal the horse again, and get a bounty in Whiterun, despite being in the Pale. Oh well, here's the other reason the horse is a godsend for this run. While I cannot fast travel while over-encumbered, the same does not apply to riding horses, so I can hop on a horse and fast travel away. When I get back to Whiterun, Skyrim being Skyrim, I get caught for my crime of horse theft, but instead of warping away, the guard just walks away. Okay then, I enchant my gear, do some questy stuff, turn in the sword, sell some stuff, etc., and then begin my ride up to High Hrothgar. Like hell, I'm going to be waddling up those 10,000 steps, so what is the alternative? Well, here's horse fact number 1 of the day. Did you know horses have the ability to climb vertical sheer mountains akin to mountain goats? Well, that is what I do, arrive in High Hrothgar and then further up the mountain to the throat of the world for later. After getting scolded by old men, we get another helpful tool for movement, Whirlwind Sprint, which will be mandatory for the next dungeon. Speaking of dungeon, it's Usengrov time. Oh boy, Usengrov. This part of the run was interesting to say the least. Getting to Usengrov wasn't too bad, barring the stray wolf wanting some horse romp. It's when I got to the dungeon when things began to spiral out of control. I forgot the mages were above the ruins, and killed my horse. Like hell, I'm crawling to Solitude for travel, so I reloaded the save, taking out the mages this time, and I entered the dungeon. The enemies inside weren't too bad. It was slow, sure, but not too bad. I took some friends with me using a necromancy against necromancers. It wasn't until the whirlwind gates when the dungeon would give me hell. I thought I'd have to clip or something, since I cannot run past the markers. Speed is something I obviously do not have. But then I was hit by a big brain play. I do a whirlwind sprint to open the gates, immediately wait for an hour during the animation, then sprint right after, and by a miracle of Azura, I managed to get through. I was very worried about this part, so I'm glad to get it past. Wrapping up the dungeon, we fail our objective successfully, travel back to Riverwood and talk to the terrible innkeep, get harassed by a Cthulhu enthusiast, which I promptly strip in the middle of town. Alvor was right back to work as if nothing happened, like it is an everyday occurrence for him. The next stop on this mischievous adventure is Kynesgrove, and the journey was nothing much to talk about. I think being on horseback is messing up the game because a few scripted encounters like the bandit by the tower just did not want to activate. It's nice because I don't want arrows sticking out of my horse. Eventually I make it to Kynesgrove with Alduin waking up a dragon from its derp nap, which we promptly put right back in. So the next part of the story is going to the Thalmor Embassy. Problem: if I go through with it, I'll be briefly unencumbered, thus fail the run. So I spend the night pondering how to solve this problem. Since I cannot do things in normal intended way, how else can I do this quest? The answer is pretty simple. Here is horse fact number 2 of the day. Did you know that when need be, horses can squeeze themselves to fit through the tightest of spaces even a quarter of their size? And while we are here, here is horse fact number 3. Did you know horses can climb trees? Once again, my equine friend saves the day. We have no idea how big of a thing this is. Besides Usengrov, this was the part I was afraid would fail the run. Usually inside the embassy there are dozens of wizards waiting to enact their Order 66. Instead, I was greeted by a lone Thalmor and Gessir. I grabbed some random documents, never bother sending Melbourne to his death, and meet back with Delphine. Next destination is Riften. The road to Riften was mostly uneventful, a few wolves, but frankly, I'm surprised because normally dragon harasses me coming here. Oh well, we make it to Riften and slowly wander our way through town ignoring all activities with thieving. In the sewers, not much to note. I decided to use the flame atronach more often, and it really pays off. It took care of the enemies with relative ease. We got to Esbern, who decided to have a dueling match with the Thalmor, who was above him. That was weird to say the least. Before returning to everyone's favorite innkeep, I parked my horse right outside the door since a blood dragon likes to spawn here. Before heading to Cloudhaven Temple, I decided to grab an Elder Scroll. I will be honest, I could not be bothered to go through Raftan. It is my least favorite dungeon in Skyrim. It is such a drag even at regular speed, so imagine the misery of going through at a turtle's pace. Thankfully, I know my cheeky clips since I once tried to learn Skyrim. I make an effort to tag Loray's farm when I travel to Donsur for this point. There is a tower that spits you out after grabbing the Elder Scroll, supposed to be a one-way exit, but thanks to the power of Bucket and Whirlwind Sprint, and Skyrim being Skyrim, I clip through the wall and head into the Elder Scroll room. Only to forget I needed the lexicon. Oh well, one trip back to Donsur, it is a swim to Septimus Outpost. Now it is time for horse fact number 4 of the day. Did you know horses are the lost ancestor to the modern polar bear? Much like polar bears, they have thick, fat, and water-resistant fur, and large, flat hooves to allow them to swim through the polar seas with ease. After a pretty long swim, you make it to the outpost and get tasked to go through an hour-long dungeon and grab a scroll with no horse. Screw that, I return to the tower, which I remember to open the rear gate, effortlessly grab the scroll, and depart to Skyhaven Temple. The trip there was interesting. I decided to take my time to kill a random vampire fledgling and wolves for no good reason, and before entering the Forsworn camp I was greeted by a blood dragon. Thankfully with my flame atronach things go by pretty well, a good sign for the soon-to-be Alduin fight. Nothing really happened going up through the temple. I could not do the fancy skip, but oh well. I made sure to grab Dragonsbane for Alduin. Speaking of Alduin, I will be honest, I was over-prepared for Alduin thanks to my kleptomania. If I had the patience, I could have had the flame atronach solo the fight resummon when need be, but I wanted to get intimate with the dragon. During the fight, I did get low a few times, but that is why I was banking a level up, so I could have a free heal when need be. After slicing for a while, the lizard decides to bail to his afterlife crib, and the only way to give chase is to let 2 annoying children argue on the mountain. Before attending the console, I made sure to hit up the local alchemy shops for as many healing potions as I can. Skuldolphin is next and running is not an option, so I want to be as prepared as I can. After save loading through everyone's favorite lunch break, we capture Dragon and depart to Skuldolphin. Normally I sprint through this place, but I took the time to kill the dragons outside and let the Flame Atronach clean up. Yeah, the Flame Atronach was a very good idea for this place, making up for my range problem, and since Draugr aren't a big fan of being burnt unalive, the insides went rather smoothly. Back outside I put the Storm Call to good use in nuking everything outside. Next up is the Dragon Priest, and since I have a speed problem, its understaff put up a lot of headaches, nearly killing me a few times. That is why I was hoarding potions like the Apocalypse. Took a while, but I got the Dragon Mask, which could have been useful for Alduin and soon, but I never used Distraction Magic for the rest of the run. Oh well, to the afterlife! The walk to Soon was an agonizing one, putting the rest of my vegetable soup to good use with cutting through the fog to no avail. Soon thankfully was a pretty easy fight, went down pretty quick, mostly with the help of my backup. After that, it was a slow waddle through the Hall of Valor because I cannot draw weapons. Oh well, after a quick pep rally, it's final boss time. To be honest, if you can make it through the previous bits, you can make it through Alduin. With 3 heroes and a flame boy to back you up, it doesn't pose much of an issue. I stayed at Alduin's side, hacking away and healing when need be, and at half health he decided to focus on me instead. With a hospital worth of medical supplies, I booped the dragon on the snoot and be congratulated for my efforts, and proving yes, you can beat Skyrim while over-encumbered. Don't do this challenge, please. But at least it was a lot of fun, and I was wanting to play Skyrim again before Starfield comes out. Will I do Starfield content? Well, I drop everything from my inventory just to see how much of a hoarder I was. Thanks you all for watching this run, and have a good night.